you get to choose who you want to be. Trauma, life, the fire was an accident. My ex-husband drank himself to death. My mother died unexpectedly. The trauma that happens to you does not have to define you. My favorite verse is, "We love because he first loved us." So I get to choose love. I get to choose love and kindness every day. And no matter the new traumas, no matter the new dramas, no matter the new conflicts, they're not tests. They're just affirmations. They're just affirmations of who I want to be. I want to be full of love and kindness.
Have you ever felt something was wrong but couldn't explain it? Like the person you love was slowly chipping away at your sense of self?
We've been there. Different marriages, but to the same man, with the same toxic pattern. But God was still working.
We're Lizzie and Dina, women of faith, survivors, and truth tellers.
Surviving toxic relationships is for any woman stuck in confusion, healing after betrayal, or searching for her voice again.
You are not crazy.
You are deeply loved. Hi there, welcome to Surviving Toxic Relationships. We're so happy that we had you here. Hey, so we have a special guest, and it's Joni Woods, and she is a certified life coach. She is a culture strategist with over 15 years of experience in communication, emotional intelligence, and relationship dynamics. As the founder of Journey Coaching, she helps build individuals, couples, and organizations to become healthier, more connected in their relationships. She's based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she's also an active community leader, speaker, and advocate for self-awareness and values-based leadership. So, Joni, we are so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be on your guys' podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. So just start by telling us your story, like what got you to the place that you are now and what got you to go through those experiences that give you the tools that you want to offer for other people struggling in these situations.
Yeah. If I could rewind my story, I'd probably start at the time when my ex-husband passed away. He died in August of 2020. What was, apart from obviously the most traumatic experience that my kids were going through, was I tried to invite his family over. I was imagining a Steel Magnolias moment where, Sally Fields is running up and like holding this grandchild that is the last part of her daughter. And even though we had been divorced for 5 years, it was so contentious. He had so much bitterness and rage and they picked up his banner. They picked up his hate for me, and the people that suffered the most were my kids. And it hurt to the point where they looked at me and said, "What did we do wrong?" They're wanting their grandparents, they're wanting their cousins, their uncle, their aunt. And even though the invitation was open, nobody showed up. Well, I take that back. The step grandmother showed up, but his immediate family, they didn't show. And they asked what they had done wrong. And so for me, that was like, I did it wrong. I did it wrong. I didn't learn how to have this communication, how to have this relationship, even though it needed strong boundaries, because my ex-husband was a narcissistic person. He had no boundaries whatsoever. He would take every little bit and try to get in. And the way that I dealt with it was just like, okay, time out. You don't get any of me. But who expects that such a life-changing situation happens? And I had done it wrong. And so if I could rewind my story, that's where all of this has started, because I get it. We have terrible relationships with people in our lives, but the fallout, the collateral damage isn't necessarily us. It's the people that are closest who feel the weight of our choices. And I learned that the really hard way. And so because of that, I was like, okay, I want to be a communication and relationship coach, because I'm not a leadership coach. I'm not a business coach. I'm not any of that. I want you to recognize how you communicate your feelings, your emotions, your needs, your desires, all of those things, your boundaries. How do you communicate that in a way that sets them so you're safe and you're being heard, you're being seen, you're being all of that. It all comes down to communication. And once you're able to do that, then you can excel. It's the runway. You want to learn how to fly, but you got to get on a good runway first. And so for me, that's where all of it started.
Wow. I can't even imagine, you know what I mean? Like not only the trauma of like being married to someone who was abusive, but then they pass away and now your children feel orphaned and now you're dealing with all of that. And then now you're dealing with the family that acts like you're the enemy when you've got so much that you're dealing with on your plate. Oh my goodness. So tell me, like, where did you go from there? Like, how did this transition into, who you are and where you are now? How did you internalize it? How did you help your children through it?
Well, so for me, I really focus on emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence involves self-reflection, self-awareness, and accountability. To do those three things in your everyday life, everyday communication, everyday relationships, you elevate them. And so because I was able to self-reflect, be self-aware, and then accountable, I was in the wrong. Like nobody would have told me that I was in the wrong. Everyone on my side of the fence, everyone on my side of the battle was like, no, you're doing this right. Like you're good to go. And thank you. Thank you for that support. But I couldn't see. Hindsight's 50-50 or whatever that quote is. But, being able to look back and say I could have done it differently meant that it gave me the ability to do it differently moving forward. And that's what happened is as they started to fight with me, as they started to take me to court, as they started to they totally did. I love your face on that one.
For what?
I'm totally fascinated.
I'm like, what they take you to court for?
We have to hear this part too when you get a chance.
So what had happened was, actually, my ex-husband had passed. They didn't reach out. They didn't communicate to any of us. It was all through lawyers. And I was like, it took them 2 weeks before they, had the funeral. And I was like, I'm going. This is the worst day of my children's life. Well, they put an emergency court order against me. I was not able to be with them on the worst day of their lives. My sister-in-law had to come in and take my daughter off of her bed and drag her literally to the funeral. And I was like, wow, okay. So, all that court stuff. And then, so this happened at the end of August, and then September all the way through January 1st. They took me to court because they wanted partial custody of my kids. And I was like, I'm sorry.
What?
I'm the mother.
What?
I had not been near my family for almost 20 years. So I was like, as soon as he passed, we were moving. Like I was looking at places. We're gone. We are gone. The only reason I was there was because of this custody arrangement.
Well, and narcissists are famous for isolating you and taking you away from your family. And those people that would be a support system and those people that would have eyeballs on their behavior and say, what are you doing with this person? Like they're crazy, so they isolate you to further control you. So I totally get why you weren't with your family. And I love that you were like, I'm going back. I need to. Okay. So they're trying to get custody of your children, even though they're, okay. Carry on.
They wanted his amount of custody, 50-50. And I was like,
still.
No. And so they missed my son's birthday. They missed Thanksgiving. They missed Christmas, all of that until New Year's in January. So the first week we're at court and their attorney was trying to reason with them. They're like, you don't have a case. Like, I'm sorry, but as much as you think you have a case, you don't have a case. And it wasn't until the morning of the court date. I spent thousands of dollars fighting them, getting prepared, looking up case studies, being like, this is not happening. And it was the morning of that they finally conceded. And it was just like, they were like, can we just see them for, have Christmas celebration? Yes. Like, please. I want you to have a relationship with your grandchildren. I want them to know their cousins. Even in our divorce, they still went to family reunions. They still had Christmas celebrations. I don't want to take that away from you. And I don't know where you got that idea, but it's not true. It's a lie. It's a lie that's been manifesting in your brain. And I'm here to tell you in front of the court, in front of everybody, please. I mean, like, you're more than welcome. Take them. And it was just a series of me swallowing my pride so many times. My former brother-in-law, when they finally did Christmas with the kids had been with me for 5 months straight, just without their father in their life, without the abuse, without the emotional torment. They were happy, they were healthy, they were cared for. And my former brother-in-law looked at his stepmother, who her and I had a good relationship. And he said, I've never seen Ashton smile. In the 5 years since we had been divorced, he had never seen my son smile at their family events. And it was like, I hope you get it. I hope you get it now. What they were going through, what they needed to be saved from was, unfortunately, the passing of your brother, but also the stability of a home that wasn't that narcissistic abuse and that highs and the lows and the honeymoon phases and the love bombing and then the pain that goes into that kind of mental health disease.
Yeah, obviously mine and Lizzie's shared ex. I mean, she didn't raise kids with him, so I'm really glad. She had grown kids when they got married, but I did raise kids with him, 4 of them. And I totally relate with what you're saying, Joni, because, you never know what mood they're going to come home in. The kids, I always tell this story that, like, when he would get home and they would hear the garage open, they would run to their room and close the door because they just never knew if he was going to be nice dad or mean dad. And mean dad was more often.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also just like you said, like, now I'm going to play with you and we're going to roughhouse and we're going to go to the park or we're going to do something fun or I'll bring home ice cream. But then now I'm in a grouchy mood because the house is messy and how dare you. And he's like demeaning and debilitating them as little children. If they're playing at a restaurant and they're giggling, if we're sitting at the tables of family and they're all giggling because they're playing like the spoon game on their nose, and he's like looking around at other people and caring about what they think about his perfect family. And now he's like yelling at them and it's like everything that could be so much fun and so joyful. And, people were staring at us because the family was adorable. They were cute. They were funny. They were having a great time together. These poor kids had no idea how to please him, how to be in his good graces, how to like not be yelled at or manipulated or raged at by his,
Yeah. When I got a divorce, I had told them, I said, my goal for this divorce is that you have 2 happy homes, because we were just one miserable home the entire time. But I didn't know that theirs wasn't happy. I didn't know until probably about 8 months before he passed that it was actually horrific, to the point where after he died, even a year later, I would try to go hug my son. And if I snuck up on him or scared him, he would go swinging. And I was just like, oh my God, like, what happened to you? What happened to you that you can't even let me touch you? And he was like, it's fine. Everyone acts like that. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, honey. That's trauma. That is trauma speaking right there. I should be able to come up and touch your back without you turning and freaking out. Like that. And it took, finally getting him out of that environment, out of even what his grandparents and family wanted to say, because all they ever kept doing was telling them how great their father was, and it was like, but is he? Like, is he? Do you really know? And getting them out of that area, or, that constant fake reassurance that their father loved him and he was this and that wasn't true. And they knew it, but they needed to be taken away from it. Yeah. And then for me to be able to say, that's not normal. That's not okay. I'm going to put you in therapy.
It just amazing how families will stand behind an abuser because either they are abusers or they are in such denial that they continue to enable them. And it's really grieving when we see the effect on children. And you could easily say, can't you see in their eyes that they are live in pain, emotional confusion, emotional trauma, but yet selfishness continues to be a big battle in these toxic people. And it breaks my heart. And it's kind of sad that it took something like a father passing because I would never wish that on anybody and I know you wouldn't either, but it's also kind of hard not to reflect on that because it's obviously evident to the family who supported the toxic person, narcissistic abuse, whatever, to say, oh my goodness, maybe they're finally thinking, but it's so hard when that person has passed on. We always want that therapy for our children because I remember when I finally got rid of my first husband, I had 4 children with my first husband who went through severe emotional, religious abuse, some physical abuse, not as much. But I remember when I got to the point, we had a time where he broke into the house and my children had to watch their father get arrested, but they tried to do their best to protect them. And I put them in family counseling. We all sat, there was 5 of us. So they were just wee littles at that point. And, we're all sitting there and then the therapist had it where we would each talk to him one-on-one. And then I was the last person. And he said, I'll be honest. He said, I'm more worried about you than I am your children because your children will heal and recover on how you recover. And, kind of going back to the old, thing that we've heard before, when the oxygen mask comes down, what's the first thing you do? You put it on yourself so you can help save the child. And it really, when you are in these situations or your children are going through it, it's how we heal that really could affect their healing.
Yeah.
And it's a hard, I think it's a very hard journey because we get so worried about our children that I think we don't realize that we probably do need that mask first. With your coaching, is there anything that you've seen with that, with other families, with communications? I mean, you've got kind of a good outlet there of people you're probably working with.
Yeah, our family has seen probably more trauma than I wish we ever had. So, the divorce was rough, obviously the death of my ex-husband, and then we moved from Illinois to Ann Arbor so we could be closer to my family in Canada. And 2 weeks before we did that, my mother passed away. So, it felt like we never got a break. So then we had to go and be in Canada for the funeral. And then I didn't have a place to stay. So I was commuting from, Canada to Ann Arbor to try and find a job, to find home, to get my son and daughter into school. My son was getting ready to start his freshman year in high school. And I was like, I've made this ginormous life decision. And yeah, it would have been safe in Illinois, but I'm going out on a limb. I'm going out and trying something different. And it wasn't until 5 days before school started that I found us a home. So all of this stuff. And then we were able to start school and get him into this amazing high school, get her into middle school, or no, it was 5th grade. But then 2023, our house burned down. And so we just sitting on the side of the road as 7 fire trucks and ambulances and the whole neighborhood. I mean, we're on YouTube. Our house burning down is on YouTube right now. Just, that kind of constant trauma that continues to be a part of our life. The only thing that I've learned out of all of it is to just keep talking to them. My kids can read my face, and there's no point in lying about it because, the day after the fire, I didn't sleep for 36 hours. I was just in shock that our life was restarting yet again. And how do I do it? And all I could do was just keep talking to them. And I started bringing them alongside of me. Okay, well, guys, we got to find a place. We got to buy new cars because both of our cars were lost in the fire. My son literally had just gotten his first car. He was 16 years old, got his first car for a month, and then it was lost in the fire. So it was like either I could buck up and do all of it on my own and literally kill myself, or be like, hey, listen, guys, shit happens. Here it is. I want you to watch me go through it, and I want you to watch me fail in many ways, because I didn't do everything right. There are times that I couldn't even get out of bed. There were times that I drank too much. There was times that I couldn't even eat. There were times when I'm screaming the bathroom because the sink is filled with crap and my emotional tank was up. But every time I'm just talking to them, I'm like, it's tough today, guys. It's tough. And I wish I was stronger, and I will be tomorrow. Let me go to bed. Let me get some sleep. Let me close my door because I'm putting myself in a timeout. Like, I do that. Like, I have to do that. I'm a single mom with 2 kids all the time. Bills are hard to pay. A house that's burnt down. I hit a deer in the middle of the road, and I was like, will this ever end? And so just every day I tell them, this is where I'm at. And I think that that is the only way I'm going to be able to raise future humans. And that's the way I look at it. Grey's Anatomy taught me that. Doctor, what her name is, but the roller skate girl. She was like, they're not kids, they're future humans. They're future humans. And if I'm not teaching them to be aware of their emotions, to understand that life friggin' sucks sometimes, like so much so you can't get out of bed. And if I'm not teaching them that I'm aware of my emotions, I understand what's going on, I'm being accountable to the fact that if you start an argument with me, you're not gonna like mom that comes out. So don't. Give me time. Give me space. That's me being accountable. That's me saying, I know who I am and I'm not perfect. And please don't push my buttons. Let me be imperfect in my space so I can come out and be better. And so that is the biggest thing that I try to teach everyone. I'm like, know who you are. Know who you are in the good and the bad. Be able to communicate that in a way that sets healthy boundaries so people aren't poked by your porcupine, by your needles. When your defenses come up and they are trying to give you a hug, you're like, I need a minute. I need space. Yeah, that's for me all emotional intelligence 101.
Well, I think we've come a long way, because I think of when I was raised, we didn't talk about a lot of that stuff. In fact, I never saw my parents even argue. And I think being honest with our children really opens doors to those communications. And would I have done it differently with my kids because I felt like I was trying to protect them and shield them? Absolutely. But that's all part of the journey. We all kind of go through our phases of having to learn. But and not that I ever like backtrack, go, oh, I wish I could redo it. No, I really don't. I'm good. But if I ever went back, that is the outlet I would have taken, a more honest, but not in a very like attacking way or anything else. But I would have been a lot more open and honest in a way that probably would have been a lot more healthier for them without them having a lot of question marks in their brain cells. But I mean, they're all adults. They're doing good. But still, I mean, I think that's part of parenting, right? We go back and go, I wish I could have done it differently. But I think that's a key factor right there. It's just having that open dialogue and being that safe place, admitting, yeah, this sucks. This stinks. This is crappy. And I'm so sorry you're going through it, and your feelings are validated. Yeah. Wow.
That. And so I really hope that you know that you are a superhero. You really are. Like this is an incredible amount of trauma that you've dealt with, and that you're trying to support your children through. Incredible. So anyway, so with that being said, I think one question before we kind of start to wrap up that I want to kind of ask you, that I thought was a beautiful thing, is going back to your relationship with him. How do you feel like someone could recognize when they're staying in that relationship out of fear, instead of genuine connection, because you could have stayed and just tried to make the best of it and tried to make a home and a family, which many women do. And I don't fault them at all, because I understand how difficult it is to leave. I say this all the time, but I was married to my ex for 27 years and I left him 9 times. 9 times, like every 3 years, which is basically a pattern. That's how difficult it was. And for all the dynamics, because I had 4 children with him, because I was a faith-based woman and I felt like God didn't want that. And then of course, just the sheer fear and terror of like raising your children on their own. And is this not okay for them? Would it be better for them to not have a mean, hateful dad? Or would it be better for them to be, at my mom's house and kind of poor, because I didn't make a lot of money back then? So all the things. What are your thoughts? Like how do you recognize, am I staying just because I'm terrified of all the unknowns, or how do I deal with that?
So, particularly in my book, I talk about the anchors, the things that once you make the decision, you just keep dropping anchors to hold on to it. So the boat in the storm, because the storm's coming. As soon as people find out that this is happening, you're going to get interventions, you're going to be told you're wrong. You have to keep anchoring down. And I just kept dropping anchors to the point where the boat stopped rocking and there was just I was safe. I was safe in my decision. And it was everything from my ex-husband had become an alcoholic. We were youth and young adult pastors for 15 years, and he was a workaholic. And once you're a holic, it just transfers. Like he was a workaholic, then became an alcoholic. And then he was mixing that with pills. And I was seeing the evidence of it over and over and over again. And so that was anchor number 1. And then anchor number 2 was how miserable my kids were. My ex was just absolutely terrible to my son. And to the point where he openly was so mean to my son at a soccer game that you could see it. He was just so proud because he was 5 years old, 6 years old, and he's holding his trophy. He's so excited. And he looks at both of us and his face drops. I mean, I have the picture of it. It's terrible. And I was like, you don't get to treat him like that. And he said something to my son on our way home from his soccer tournament. And my son was just so excited holding his trophy. And he was like, well, you don't really deserve that. And I was like, who are you to talk? It was the first time I ever backtalked him. And he was like, you need to support me. And I was like, no, I don't. I do not need to support you when you are tearing down my child. So that was anchor number 2, and it just, all the anchors kept going and going. And when we tried to do an intervention for my ex-husband for his drinking, he literally flipped the script. I was sitting there watching it, and his parents had come in, and then his best friend comes in, and he's just like, I just need to drink because I can't sleep, and all of this. Everyone just turned, and I was like, wow, you have the silver tongue. And then, so that was anchor number 3. And then when I decided, I sent the intervention, well, then he sent a letter to his entire family about how abusive I was and how terrible, and his drinking is because of me, because I've done all this to him. And I was like, anchor number 4. Like, it was just like anchor. And, I tried. We were married for 15 years. We were in marriage counseling for specifically pastors, because obviously that's a different role. Sometimes you can't really talk to anybody about anything, to the point that our last counseling session, our therapist looked at him and was like, and he looked at her and was like, 100% of our issues are Johnny's fault. And she was like, 100%? He was like, yeah, 100%. And she was like, really? He was like, okay, well, like 99.9. And I was like, okay. And she ended up emailing me and said, Johnny, I can't help you. I can't help you guys. He is unwilling to hear anything. So it was anchor. anchor. And so it wasn't like you leave 9 times, you just anchor down every time to the point where it's just like, okay, I tried.
So when you say anchor, it almost sounds to me like epiphany after epiphany after epiphany of this is who I am married to, or this is who I'm committed to. This is who he is. And you're getting these like, these snapshots of this is the person that is the real person, versus the person that I believed he was or wanted to believe he was or tried to help him be. So is that what you mean by the anchor?
Exactly. Yep. All
Yeah.
of it. Yep.
And what a beautiful analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Dropping the anchors until the moment the boat stops rocking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
what a
Mhm.
beautiful analogy. I was like, in fact, I'm writing that down, even though I
Yeah.
have it here, but
Yeah.
I love those types of quotes and phrases. And I was like, that is an awesome, you should use it as a tagline.
Thank you. I think the last anchor that really hit home was I was sitting and listening to a sermon, and they used the Proverbs, "A dog does not return to its vomit." And I was like,
Yes. And that is when I would date, my friend would say, a dog returns to its vomit. Do you want to be that dog? No. So that's 100%.
Wow. And I won't say which family member, but I have a very close family member who's one of my favorite people in the whole world. And she was married to a pastor. And it's almost like you're telling her story. Like they went to a counselor, a therapist. And, now here's the difference. They went to a therapist and he was so good at talking about himself and how, wonderful he was and upright he was and how she caused all the problems. But because she was just so like blown away by it, because he sang a different tune when they were together, right? And then they're in front of this therapist and he's like slinging the story and twisting it and saying, well, she caused that, she did that, she was the reason for that. And the sad thing is this therapist did not catch on. And so it did help her to realize like this is irreparable, because I wanted to do this for the potential chance that we're a pastoral couple and we are leading a church and that maybe there's hope for us. And they had multiple children and foster children, even, six of them total. And she just was trying to see if maybe going to a neutral party would give him the idea and the chance to look at things, from a different level and from a different way, and having somebody to validate what she was going through. And literally, it was just another chance for him to look really good and really innocent and just throw her against the wall, virtually. Wisdom and knowledge. I'm not grateful that you went through all this hell and this trauma, Joni, but my goodness, when you look at what you have to offer, the hurting out there, the loss, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair. Like I didn't deserve any of this, and you have that healing balm to offer people that are completely struggling and destitute and angry at God. Like it's amazing. So I'm so grateful for you. And I know we have to wrap it up, but is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience out there, the ladies that are in the surviving toxic relationship space?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I try to tell everybody, and I will probably, as I begin to continue to promote my book, is you get to choose who you want to be. Trauma, life, the fire was an accident. My ex-husband drank himself to death. My mother died unexpectedly. It's just the trauma that happens to you does not have to define you. You get to choose who you want to be every day. And for me, that person, I always want to be someone with love and kindness. My favorite verse is, "We love because he first loved us." So I get to choose love. I get to choose love and kindness every day. And no matter the new traumas, no matter the new dramas, no matter the new conflicts, they're not tests. They're just affirmations. They're just affirmations of who I want to be. I want to be full of love and kindness. And yeah, it's the hard road. Some people want to be brave. Some people want to be resilient. Some people want to be successful. Kudos. Pick who you want to be. And then be it. Be it in the face of everything you're going through, and you will love yourself so much more. So much more.
That was beautiful. Great way to end it right there. Joni, we are so thrilled to have this time with you and to be able to get to know you. And we know that your story, your journey will definitely resonate with someone out there. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. As we close today's episode, we want to thank Joni for sharing her story with such honesty, courage, and wisdom. Conversations like this matter because they remind us that healing is possible, even after deep loss, trauma, and betrayal. And that clarity often begins with learning how to communicate, set boundaries, and trust ourselves again. We also want to share that we have a new book coming soon titled Love with Eyes Wide Open, Mothers Teaching Their Daughters to Recognize Red Flags in God's Voice in Relationships. This book was written for mothers who want to help their daughters develop discernment, emotional safety, and spiritual clarity so they can recognize unhealthy patterns early and learn to trust the peace God provides, not confusion or fear. If you found value in this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel or follow the podcast. When you like, share, subscribe, or leave a 5-star review, it truly helps this message reach others who may be quietly searching for answers, healing, or hope. We are deeply grateful for each and every one of you who take the time to listen, share, and support this work. You are the reason these conversations continue. Until next time, take care of your heart. Remember, you are not alone. You are deeply seen, and you are deeply, deeply loved. Thank you.